Okay.
You
Are we all
here?
here?
I'm so punctual.
Okay, it's 6:01. I call this meeting of the Arlington County Electoral Board to order. The first order of business on the agenda is something that's not actually on the agenda. It's not really anything. As I mentioned last month, we had turnover on the board. You might notice it up here. I'd like to introduce Dave Leichman. I think I got.
You nailed it.
Yeah, there we go. Who joins us as our newest member. I will actually turn over to Dave. He can do his own introduction and tell you a little bit about himself.
Okay. Hi, I'm Dave Leichman. I am the new board member, as Dominique said. About me, I have lived in Arlington my entire adult life. I think I moved here like 23 years ago, which is a long time for somebody in their 40s. I have 2 kids and an APS. I'm an APS parent myself, both teenagers. And I used to be leadership for the Democratic Party, both statewide and in Arlington, but I'm retired from all that now. And it's wonderful. Now I get to do things like this. During the day, I am the Senior Director for Global Elections at Microsoft, which sounds petty, but what it really means is I'm kind of the go-to for elections officials worldwide. And when I say worldwide, I mean entirely worldwide, including the US. We always joke there's about 150 democracies in the world and 50 of them are in the US. So I have the 50 states and about 100 other countries that I cover. But non-sales, I'm entirely non-sales. So don't think there's any conflicts of interest when it comes to that. I have, I've been to something like 10 different countries in the last 2 years, just meeting with elections officials, which is the thing I love to do. And I talk about AI, election security, cybersecurity, information literacy, information integrity with them. But I also run civic engagement for Microsoft. We've registered about 250,000 voters over the last 5 years under my program. And I am on the National Advisory Board for both National Voter Registration Day and the Civic Alliance. And that's like voter registration is a passion of mine. So I'm just really excited I'm an elections nerd, so I'm excited to be here. And I've said it many times, but you guys are so lucky to have Gretchen as a boss. Like, she is renowned countrywide as one of the best elections around. So
we have
we're all lucky to
learned
have
that.
her.
Even if we didn't know it before, we have learned it.
No,
we're
lucky. We're lucky to
And-
have support all around.
Arlington runs impeccable elections, so I'm glad to be part of it. Thank you.
Oh,
We're happy to have Dave. And don't worry, we'll make sure you don't run into any conflicts.
Don't plan to.
There aren't that many that could possibly.
Yeah.
Next item of business is the approval of minutes from the December meeting. You can sit this one out, Dave, since you were part of the meeting. I move that we approve the minutes from the December meeting.
I'll second.
Any objection? We should probably reprint these.
Just
Yeah,
it's that one printer that's.
No, I don't mean for that. I'm not sure that Rich needs to be on this. It's no longer in the board. Hearing no objection, that motion is approved. We'll move to public comment. I think we have comment from Connie Potter. Yes, Michelle.
Connie Potter with the League of Women Voters of Arlington and Alexandria City. I just wanted to note, with the change in postal regulations for mail is not stamped for a while, the league is going to actively support getting people to either use drop boxes or mail their ballots in 2 weeks or more there.
We'll have a slight discussion of that related to special election, I think, later.
That's it.
And then Krista Rosa.
I'm Krista Rosa. I've been a resident longer than Dave Exton. I was 1 year old now. Anyway, just wanted to wish happy New Year, and looking forward to working with you all again. It's a member of the League of Women Voters, and I'm also chair chapter leader for Spread the Votes. We do a lot of work. It's going to be a busy year, so it'll be exciting. Interesting.
Yes, it does. Okay, the next item on the agenda is the reorganization board, as we were required to do when we had a new member join. I'm going to move a slate of Kim Phillip as chair, Dave Leichman as vice chair, and myself as secretary, with terms to begin at midnight to make the proration of salaries easier for Gretchen. So we're not playing musical chairs at this meeting.
I will second that.
Any objection to that? Hearing none. Those offices are approved, but I will continue sitting here for the remainder of tonight. Next on the agenda is the initial meeting schedule for 2026. I would move that we continue with the second Tuesday of the month, with the exception of February, where code requires that we meet in the first week of the month. So our next meeting would be February 3rd, I believe, is the first Tuesday. And then the second Tuesday in all following months, subject to changes as schedules vary and depending on what elections pop up between now and the actual meeting dates. I know we often move our June meeting because of primary, but we may not have a primary in June. We'll see. Those are always subject to last minute changes, but the general schedule would be second Tuesday of the month.
I will second that.
Any discussion? All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? All right, we have a meeting schedule. Next up is the post-election report from the November election, for which I will turn it over to Betsy.
So the post-election report, once again, this post-election report is something we prepare with trying to pull data from the election that maybe is available or maybe is not necessarily available to provide some insight into how Arlington is voting. The data, if there is ever a request for things to include in the report, please just let us know. We do have a lot of data at our hands and we want these reports to be useful to the public and be meaningful for the public. So the main thing of note this election is this is the first time in a gubernatorial election that more than 100,000 voters have cast ballots in Arlington. This is the first time we crossed that 100,000 mark. So as you can see, 55% of voters voted on election day, with 32% voting early and 13% by mail. This does seem to be holding. So we're now at 4 years where we've had basically no excuse early voting or in-person absentee voting. And so these percentages seem to be consistent in the same type of election. So obviously in a presidential, we're seeing more people vote are early, but in the non-presidential, it's around these. So in terms of early voting turnout, obviously courthouse is a heavily used facility. And then because Walter Reed and Madison just aren't open as long as courthouses. I think the main thing to note is that we didn't have long wait times at any of these sites until we got to the very last few days of early voting. So even though we have 45 days of early voting, we didn't hit a 45-minute to an hour wait until the very, very end that Friday and Saturday. And if we could do anything to encourage voters to take advantage of being able to vote before the last Saturday, it would certainly help reduce pressure and expectations. Okay. Once again, we mailed around 19,000 ballots, and we ended up counting just under 13,000 ballots. In addition to those 13,000, we had 1,300 exchanged to vote in person, either on election day or before election day. And in terms of mail ballots that we rejected, we did reject 85. So these were people who were contacted because they had an omission on their statement of voter with their mail ballot, and they did not reply in a timely fashion for us to be able to count their ballots. Okay. And then election staff, we used 490 election officers, and we had over 50 temporary employees. And those are mainly hired to support the early voting sites because those are very labor intensive operations. That is.
Yeah, and I think Tanya has.
Do you want me to talk about same day registration?
Yeah, sure.
Okay, so in here, we talk about the number of same-day registration provisional ballots that we had. So there's a statistically significant reduction in the number of same-day registrations from last year to this year. And the question is that related to what the main law change from last year to this year is they extended the voter registration window. So now you can register up to 10 days before the election, whereas previously it had been 21. So there's a question of did that potentially reduce the number of people registering to vote and voting at the same time? I think I would hesitate to say causation off of a single example.
Correct.
But there was the reduction in same-day registrations is statistically significant, which means it did not happen by chance.
It'll be interesting to see if the numbers are look similar, if there's any statistical significance this year that we can start.
Yeah, in a primary, the primaries in Arlington are remarkably consistent, so those are good ones to look at for comparisons. So,
The problem is that the registration issue did not take effect until July 1st. So we can't compare to last year. This will be the first year that the primary will have that.
yeah, because there are a lot of other.
Yes, I had asked about the same day registration and the change, given the law change, and I did point out that
Correlation.
correlation is
a little
not
bit
causation, and that we can't do anything by 1 year.
Yeah, causation is a little bit impossible to, you'd have to look at, yeah.
But I did want to see if we did notice, particularly during early voting, because
Yeah.
it is noticeable that people who would come in those 11 days would wind up having to do a provisional ballot when it would be easier to just say, hey, here, registered vote, and
Yeah.
we can avoid that provision.
Good question.
Yeah, I just have a question about data. For the voter added on Reg, do we know how many of those were converted from pre-registration?
Oh, that's a really good question. No.
We just don't have that data.
I
Okay.
don't know that number.
You think
Would
that's-
that be available? Would we be able to determine it from there?
So I don't know which reports are available in our system, so I can't say yes or no.
I'm just curious because pre-reg started what, like 3 or 4 years ago? So now we've got a crop of voters who are actually coming in from that pre-reg
Yeah,
to see how effective it was.
no, so I will have to look at that information, but no, that's just like newly added. And so it's a good question. I don't know what because the reports have not changed since pre-registration, so it is definitely not capturing that data. So,
Recommendation we make to elect.
yeah.
It's one of those things for that future time when we might have a new Varus.
Yes.
It's
New
for anybody that's old enough to remember the movie The Money Pit, Varus is always coming in 2 weeks. Coming 2 weeks.
Yeah,
You
that
know,
was,
3
anyway.
years later.
The same day, or sorry, the pre-registration. I will note, like I said, this is just anecdotal data, but I did process a lot of mail ballot applications for people who are definitely away at university. So it seemed like the college kids from Arlington were definitely voting in this election. So,
More than in
Yeah.
previous.
I mean, I don't generally process
Yeah.
that many mail ballot applications. This one I just happened to, like every other one was a kid or a young person. Yeah.
Question, between the mails, the ballots mailed, 19,000 and then the ones counted 12,000 and then the ones, looks like there's like 5,000 maybe duplicate ballots and didn't use them. I was wondering if there was, if you had some analysis of that or if there's any effort to adjust the permanent absentee ballot list for those people, maybe to.
It would be interesting to see how many of the differential are permanent absentee versus request.
There might be a way to get that information. That is data I could potentially pull or report. So that 19,000, it includes, military and overseas voters, which just have a much lower rate in this type of election. It's a lower rate and their ballots are returned late through the postal service at a much higher rate. And then there's also, that includes people whose ballots did get lost along the way. So we would know if so because we're just counting every piece of mail going out the door. So if somebody had to be sent 2-3 ballots, which does happen even in Arlington, like the post office just does not deliver to some streets.
In other words, 19,432 is not the number of voters who got
It's
ballots.
the number of
It is the
pieces
number
of
of
mail.
ballots that went.
But for us, for budgets and stuff like that, that's an important number we need to track.
Just a quick follow-up of the undelivered
Yeah.
ballots that came back. Were you able to process them? Did you have time to process some of them to be able to take them off, make them inactive?
Well, I mean, we process what we can, so. Yeah, I mean, no, yeah, you get to the final days before the election, you're just trying to process what's coming in. So like when you get to election day and you have this influx suddenly of thousands of ballots that come in from polling places on election day that you now have to turn around and get counted in 3 days. Like the undeliverables backseat at that point in time.
And for those who are not aware,
But a vast majority of the undeliverables that we receive they do come back within those first 2 weeks after the initial mail out goes out. So vast majority of undeliverables are processed. Those voters are contacted. Several of them do take the opportunity to go ahead and confirm they no longer live in Arlington. So yeah, we do our best, but.
the post office is a roller coaster. The reasoning for that, just to note, the reasoning for that is that the ballots that come back undeliverable have to go with all the other ballots into sealed boxes and over to the courthouse to the clerk. So we have a limited window in which to process things with them before we have to.
So we do our
Divest ourselves of it.
best, but yeah. I would say 90% get processed, but I don't have a solid number of, certainly not 100%.
Matt, a quick question. Has there ever been another non-presidential election where there've been more than 100,000 votes?
I don't think so. Yeah, I'd have to go look real quick, but we can definitely have Tanya get that number to you. But I'm pretty sure this was the first time in a non-presidential, and it's simply related to, as our percentage didn't necessarily go up, but it's we're growing in population. And more accurate list maintenance, I think.
Anything else, Richard?
That's it. Like I
All
said,
right, then we will move on. The next item on the agenda is the tasks delegated to the Director of Elections and the staff. We are permitted to delegate things that are by code entrusted to the Electoral Board to the Director of Elections and the staff to do on our behalf. We have a list of those tasks. We do not have to necessarily do this every year, but since we have a new member, I would table a motion to approve the list as it currently exists. I'm waiting for a second.
That's all right. I am letting me write.
Wait, the secretary, the secretary kitchen.
Okay, I will second that.
Okay, is there any discussion at this point? Because my inclination is to table this until February so that Dave can take some more time to review that list and come up with any questions. That was the original plan. We were not going to vote on this, so I would move that we table this motion until the February meeting.
I will. I
Check that. Second that. Okay. Any objection to the table? Then the motion is tabled until February. Here next month. Next on the agenda is the gift policy. For those of you that have been around this a bit, you know that we had a gift policy in effect. We approved it at the beginning of the procurement portion of our proceedings because we were going to be going to conferences and the vendors are there and would probably like to do things that we thought may or may not be appropriate. Because we are kind of the county, but not employed directly by the county, we are not bound by the county's gift policy. So we adopted our own for ourselves and the staff. However, when we adopted it originally, it was only for the duration of the procurement process. That has come to an end, although we haven't signed the final contract, but we're in effect done with that. However, I think I would move that the gift policy be made permanent, subject to any future changes, but I mean, we can make motions for that. You can participate.
I haven't seen.
Okay. Oh, it is on the website. We can table this one too.
Okay, so I'll make that motion.
I like
I'll
my
second.
court, I did eat, but it's.
You probably,
I'll second
Okay.
that motion and then I'll make a
Sure, yeah.
motion to table this.
I should have
for
excused
every meeting.
That is fine.
No, you're fine.
I would second the motion table. Any objection to tabling until next?
it's still in place though.
Yeah,
Yeah,
we
fine.
haven't signed,
Since we haven't signed the contract
My-
yet, we can call
from
it.
my perspective, it has nothing.
It has
to
always
sign.
been in place.
But this is to make it permanent, so
Okay.
we want to give you time.
I would appreciate that. Thank you.
It's, like I said, I haven't signed anything, so
Okay.
So technically, the current gift policy is,
I consider it still in effect.
Good.
and I don't know that any of us are going to,
I highly doubt I will have any
Any-
problems with it. I just want to make sure.
I don't think in the next month, any of us are slated to be at any
No, vendor.
Fiestas.
Yes, I am.
You are, but you are always probably gonna.
But I always am for my job. I
Yeah.
won't be there with my Arlington hat on.
Then the motion to approve the gift policy permanently is tabled till the February meeting.
Question about the procurement, just,
we might reserve the answer until announcements, but sure, ask the question.
so it's just my understanding that the board decided to go with the Unison machines, scanners. How about the poll pads? Are they being renewed too? And is that still going to be knowing?
Separate contract, not up for, we didn't, like I said, it's not a part of the voting machines, so it's not up for renewal or, consideration at this point in time. So,
Okay, the final bit of business for us is special election planning. You're probably all aware that Senator Evan has signaled he will be resigning. Special election has been called for the 10th of February. So there's planning stuff and dates and things to.
Yes, so our website has been updated with this information. There are special rules when a special election like this one is called, of like how long before the voter registration deadline and absentee voting start. So the voter registration deadline is February 3rd. Early voting is open for a week, Saturday to Saturday. And during this meeting, we'll set the locations and hours. And then voters only have until January 30th to request a mail ballot. Right now, we do have around 1,700 people slated to get a mail ballot in our portion of the 39th Senate District. And there are around, it's under 19,000 voters in this district. So it's I can get exact numbers. It was in the 18,000 range.
That's
That's
Yes.
the Arlington. I only
So-
care about Arlington.
Yeah, so.
Yeah.
Gretchen will correct me. I'm pretty sure from the map, it's precincts 108, 121, 103.
I'm gonna do them in order.
103,
103, 106,
106, okay.
108, 121, 150, 153. Thank you for stopping me for making that mistake that I make all the time.
So
Okay.
then I
It's
suppose,
really Crystal City. If you live south of 395 and east of South Arlington Ridge Road or Horizon Hills, that is the geographic boundary of the Senate District.
okay, then the meaty stuff is early voting.
Next, we're gonna go down our to-do list. So the first question, I know drop boxes are up to me to decide which ones to open. The only drop box that we have located in the 39th Senate District is the one at the Aurora Hills Library. My recommendation is that we open that one and the one here at Courthouse, and only those two.
I would
Yeah,
move
check
that
it out.
that recommendation be accepted. We don't accept it. It's up
Okay.
to you. I would move that the board recommends that.
Does the board have any objections?
No.
No objections. We don't need a motion, but no.
Okay, no objection. Okay, so those will be.
That's where the election's taking place.
Yeah. So that is, so those will be the drop boxes we open. I don't have an open date on drop boxes because I'm not sure when ballots will get in the mail, so stay tuned for that. We don't know when we're gonna have ballots approved or anything, so this is going to be a lot of like, once we know this, then we'll be able to put more information out there. Okay, the next thing I need from
I
the,
was gonna say, my understanding is both parties are picking candidates tonight.
but it doesn't matter, the filing window's through Thursday. So
Right.
we're not gonna get an official certified list of candidates till
Correct.
Friday. And then
We'll have the
the
two
state
big
has to approve our ballots, so that'll happen sometime next week, and then, so there's a whole schedule of things.
Yes.
Yep. The logic and accuracy testing date for early voting and precincts, I talked to Jackie and we think we can do both at the same time. If that's amenable to the board, they only have to do one date as opposed to splitting it across 2 dates. So early voting starts Saturday, the 31st. So is there any time in there that would work with the board schedule?
When do we think we'll be ready? I mean, we need ballots to do all
Yeah.
that thing.
Yeah,
so-
you sound like Jackie.
I know, I understand that, well, sometimes that is
Yeah,
wise.
yeah, I would say anytime the week of January 26th, we should be ready.
Do you want to say tentatively? I think Jackie tests like Tuesdays. They want
Yeah.
to say Thursdays.
Yeah, we do like middle of the week.
Do you want to say tentatively the 27th, and then we'll just kind of keep an eye on, because we know that the ballot's going to be the new version.
Yeah.
So,
The question is, do we think,
Does the 27th work for?
Yeah, NAS doesn't start till the 29th, so.
Okay, so the
Um,
29th is out.
the question is, given that we probably only need to test probably 10 or fewer machines, can we do that in the evening?
Mhm.
Okay. Then 6 o'clock? Our
Yeah.
usual time for things in the evening, okay. And the
Yeah.
27th at 6.
So that'll be the voting machines
To be
for
postponed, should we?
Yeah.
Yeah.
not have ballots.
I will note this for Dave, in case you have not read the code section that pertains to this. We are actually not required.
I know.
As long as one of the 4 of us is there, that is sufficient for an LNA test.
I'd like to be there.
Yeah, but we like
It's
to
my
make,
first
I
LNA.
know.
yeah, we like to make sure that we can all be there, but like,
Yeah.
none of us should feel like if
Yeah.
something comes up, we're not.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah, and so we'll LNA the poll books, ballot printers, and voting machines for early voting, and then the precinct scanners for early voting. And I'll put all this in an email to the party chairs. The post-election schedule. So the election is on the 10th, so generally we do canvass starting at 9 AM on the 11th.
the canvas, I think, I have no, unless Kim or Dave objects to changing the practice of the last few elections with it. The canvas will open at 7 o'clock on Tuesday,
Okay.
although we won't technically start it until whenever.
Opening paperwork.
yeah, so we close it. So we basically, we open the canvas once the election closes. So that way, if staff needs to access paperwork or that, the canvas is officially started.
And we can start opening, like, particularly envelope 2. To get it returned.
And then,
Staffing for that, we need like a bazillion people like we usually have, and then we have 6 precincts.
no, the answer is no.
I mean, in a sense, we could probably do it ourselves.
Yes, the board could canvass all the paperwork themselves if they wanted to.
That's
I
okay.
will be here at 9, but that's fine, Dave is right.
Okay, so, and
Set
then,
any precedents.
and then we usually do the provisional ballot meeting starting at noon on the 11th. That's the public can come in. Is that still okay with everybody?
Yep, I don't know how much leeway we have to change the noon.
You have to convene it before 5 PM that day.
We need to change all of our little ring roads.
Yes. Yes, we would have to reprint all of the green notices.
Rather not.
Yeah, let's go ahead.
We will appear for the 5 minutes it usually takes to appear at noon for anybody that shows up, which is usually 1 or 2.
And then we can start doing same day registration provisionals, it sounds like on the 13th. And then we can, the state wants us to certify on the 13th. So my recommendation would be, depending on the number of provisional ballots, convene the afternoon of the 13th. Because we
Okay.
you close out the cap precinct until noon.
That I will say, perhaps for the reporter in the room, elect likes to do this. There is no legal basis for a Friday deadline,
Yes.
which they have basically admitted. They would like them by Friday because the state board wants to meet on Wednesday.
The
and they
state
want
board
time.
does, they already have the meeting scheduled, and
Yes.
we all want the 3-day weekend.
We want a 3-day weekend. They want time to do their review. I think that should be worked around the actual legal deadline,
Yeah.
which is Tuesday.
Yeah, they've asked that we certify by the 13th.
And suggested that we could certify earlier than that if we wanted to, which they seem to forget that we have to wait until noon on Friday for mail ballots to come in. But
So my recommendation would be for the board to come in the afternoon of the 13th and
at noon,
certify.
or do we later than that?
Once it's according to your schedules, I don't think it needs to be at noon, but it kind of depends on how much work there is to do as well.
1 PM.
Yeah.
Fine.
Okay.
Do we have until
Friday.
5 PM?
We can go until, we have until, as it's been noted.
It's just
10
the
days.
13th.
Yeah, we have
Okay.
7 days after being.
Okay, I just wanted to check if there was a time limit.
Yes, we're done when we're done.
Yeah.
And not before we're done.
Yeah, we know that we will have outstanding mail ballots. Yeah, because we're going to have, I mean, that part of Arlington's gonna have loan military overseas voters, so they're putting in ballots, they're never gonna get back to us in time. There's zero chance of us being able to close out the mail ballot precinct before noon that Friday. So,
But did the STR still need to be processed by elect?
they do.
Yes, because it's multi-jurisdictional.
But that sounds like a pretty tight window.
Yep, we're aware. Yep. Once again, it's 6 precincts for us, so
7
that's
for
not,
Fairfax and it's mostly.
it's not a huge, yeah, for Alexandria, this timeline, but special, like this is the nature of a special election, you just gotta go.
Which is why I didn't get to write to the state board.
Yeah.
Sure,
Anyway.
there-
We'll be,
sure there's
we'll be done by Friday. It's just-
Yeah,
Point of-
I don't.
I don't like when they seem to go rogue without, and make it sound like there's a legal deadline that they had set when it's not.
It's fine.
Working.
We will, we still have a pre-processing requirement, so we're still gonna have to start processing mail ballots 7 days before election on that Tuesday, February 3rd. And then we'll need to convene a cap on, since cap is short for central absentee precinct, it's where we count the mail ballots. So we'll still convene the mail ballot precinct on election day. So it's all the same motions, just on a much smaller scale.
Yeah, code actually provides that a special election is run by all the same rules as a general election, except as provided by law. So like law provides for a shorter registration period and differences in candidate filings and things like that. And does give us leeway on early voting because we can't possibly have 45 days for early voting for.
Anyway,
just
so
that thing.
that works for me. So the next question in front of the board is early voting hours and locations. And I'm not sure, so we, Alexandria and Fairfax already have their hours set, we're the last to go. So we provided Alexandria's hours, which they voted on this morning, and then we have Fairfax County's hours. Once again, this district is predominantly in Alexandria, it's just pieces of it in Fairfax and Arlington. So Alexandria is only opening their main office in Old Town. They are opening on the Sunday and they'll be open 2 evenings. And then Fairfax County, they are opening their main office, which is way out there. And then they're also opening the Mason Government Center, which I believe is actually in the 39th Senate District. So it makes a lot more sense for it to be open. So
For purposes of discussion, I will move that we only open the office and not the satellites. I have reasons to doubt my own motion, which I will express after I get a second.
So, and that's where they're opening, they're only open, well, they're open till 7 p.m. that Monday through Friday. So what Fairfax, this is pretty consistent with what they've done with their other special elections. They're just following what's worked in the other specials. Since if it's Tuesday, it's election day in Fairfax County right now.
Yeah.
So my motion is to just open the main
Courthouse.
office and not the satellites.
We
I will
are.
speak to my own motion.
I did confirm with the Department of Elections that we could open, that you don't have to open the satellites for a special election. And then they did say legally, it's not possible for us to establish a new early voting site that would actually be in that Crystal Pentagon City area. So we would have to use an existing location. Because Walter Reed is not in the 39th Senate District, they were a little bit ambiguous on whether or not it could be used in their legal opinion. So
If anybody would like to second my motion, I have.
they didn't, they're like, well, if it's not in the district, then yeah.
Or I'll second.
Thank you. Here's my point, and it has everything to do with Walter Reed and nothing to do with Madison. Madison is not being considered. It's in the wrong part of Arlington. Nobody should be up there.
Yeah.
That lives in the 39th district.
Yeah.
No reason for them to be there.
And I have data to support that voters there are not voting.
I will also say I have, I don't want to say zero, but virtually no confidence in the legal advice that comes out of elect because it's been shoddy in the past. So whether we can or can't is, I think we can if we want. The question I have, and maybe Kim can speak to it, is this feels to me like a North Arlington versus South Arlington thing. I don't want to look like we're shorting South Arlington by saying we're not going to have Walter Reed open. I do see the problems with having Walter Reed open, which is lots of people showing up who have no idea what's going on and being told, this isn't your election, go home. Which may or may not look good or bad. They may not understand that they don't live in the 39th Senate District because it doesn't extend to where Walter Reed happens to be, but I feel slightly uncomfortable with the idea of not having a satellite location available to the people that live over in that part of Arlington.
Question. What's the significant additive cost of opening Walter Reed?
I mean, it's all extra. We do not have, it's all extra money that we have
Right.
not allocated for in this budget.
Exactly.
Because we like with courthouse, we can staff the early voting site mostly with existing staff, maybe bring in 1 or 2 people to help out during lunches or if we open late.
But with Walter Reed,
Both Walter Reed, it's every person there is an extra person on payroll getting paid.
Okay.
Hold on, I can do the math real quick.
I am genuinely curious.
Because at this point, we can't have another satellite because we need to go to the county board to get that.
Yeah, and there's not enough time. So it's about
If
$1,000
they had left longer.
for an 8-hour.
That is it.
shift.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah.
Okay, so it's
Yeah.
only $1,000 for it. I mean, that's not.
Yeah.
Bank breaking.
No.
Okay.
Well,
We're not going to go
I-
bankrupt if we decide to open Walter Reed.
for a couple of days.
I personally would like to see a South Arlington satellite for drivability purposes alone, right? Like, I think. if we
Right,
can-
yeah, because, it's once again, it's
Even if
how,
it's just one day.
how are people going to be getting from, there to vote early? Are they gonna take the metro, because this is the better metro site? Or are they gonna drive over to Walter Reed?
They're gonna drive over to Walter Reed.
Depends on if they have a car.
Yeah,
Anyway,
I-
the choice is,
I guess I'm actually genuinely curious. Like, I would like to know what the Republican Party thinks, but the Democratic Party chair is sitting in the room. Like, I assume Arlington Dems is in favor of a satellite location.
That's the preference, right?
Yeah, I mean, I'm going to assume the Republican Party is also probably in favor of that. I don't know, but
I wouldn't have any freaking clue.
yeah.
I don't know if we even have I don't know what the position would be on this. I think that our general opinion is this is Alexandria's party and.
Yeah.
And so they haven't, not to say they haven't put much thought into it, but our chairman has a personal matter that has arisen after Christmas, and so it's a little distracting.
Okay, I don't know anything about that.
I can't go into it.
No.
Okay, no, yeah, I don't care. But
Yeah, so the main, so we're hearing yes, Walter Reed, 2 yeses for Walter Reed,
Yeah.
for the
Him being a
Saturday.
South
yeah,
Valley-
for Saturday.
Yeah, but not in
She's
that.
not in the
Yeah,
39
not in that
district.
district. But no, I'm fine with having Walter Reed. I'm fine with having another satellite location.
I would like to amend my motion to have Walter Reed open for that week in our usual, like,
So that,
Monday, Wednesday, Thursday,
that's the next discussion
and the
is
Saturday.
the hours, what hours?
Well, we can make a separate motion, but the motion will be that we will open Walter Reed. We'll make a separate motion.
I'll go ahead and I'll second that.
Any objection?
So, for legal requirements, we know that it will take place between Saturday 31st through Saturday the 7th, I believe, here. And that's generally we do 8 to 5, Monday through Friday. It's our normal hours. And then we do, Saturday, we actually do 9 to 5, just because, yeah. We're meeting the legal requirements. Sundays are optional. You can see Fairfax isn't doing Sundays for any of their specials. Alexandria did, but Alexandria didn't open up their more convenient site at Eaton Library for this one. And then both are offering some evening hours. So.
I will start the discussion with a motion to have,
Before you do that, can we finish up?
oh, yes. Did anybody have an objection? So all in favor of opening Walter Reed? Now that I'm about to move.
Aye.
Okay, aye. Any opposed? Approved. The motion for hours, I would move that the opening bid be our usual. Are we required by, okay, I would move that we open Walter Reed for both Saturdays. I'm gonna ask about this. And our usual Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. The hours would match the office for Saturdays, which I guess 5.
Yep.
Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, I think we usually do 2 to 7. I don't see a reason to deviate from that. That means that the office's hours would be 9 to 5 on the Saturdays, 8 to 5 on Monday and Friday, and 8 to 7 on Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday to match Walter Reed's
We
closing.
don't always do Wednesday. Like in a primary, you sometimes just do Tuesday, Thursday.
Given the shortened period, should we, I'm gonna leave Wednesday in my motion and we can have a discussion.
In my mind, the
There's
biggest,
no motion yet. We need to.
okay, fine.
Would you like to?
Yes, Mr.
Okay,
Roberts.
there we go.
Seconded. Now can we discuss?
Yes, now
Okay.
you may have the floor.
In my mind, the weekend times are the value for the satellite because it's not near a metro, right? And so people are gonna use the weekend to drive there, right? The weekdays are less important in my mind. Feels like they're just
It's also hard
completions.
to get the space, but yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, the county makes it work.
So I'm kind of ambivalent on the weekday hours.
So I guess my question is, so this location, the office would be 9 to 5 Saturdays.
Mhm.
And then during the week, it would be 8 to
5.
8 to 5. Monday
Like
through
that's the
Friday.
base that we have to do.
Right, Monday through Friday.
But the motion was to extend to 7 on any day that Walter Reed is open.
Yeah. So I guess my question is, that this being a special election, being for the 39th district, the question is, would the 2 Saturdays be the best day for Walter Reed, or do we want to add one additional day during the week? Doing great.
I think we only need one additional day during the week.
Tuesday or Thursday.
You told me.
Remember that. Don't know we have any scientific data. It would be a preference.
Wednesday is the slowest day.
Okay.
Which is why we don't, Mondays and Fridays actually tend to be the busier days. for early voting. And Saturdays, of course. So, and for our purposes, it would almost be easier to do a Friday, Saturday, but that doesn't give evening hours
Right.
necessarily. Although Fairfax is open to 7 p.m.
It is nice to have evening hours.
How disgruntled would everyone be?
I mean, people need the work, so yes, this is,
If we would approve Walter Reed, would we open the Dropbox there?
yeah, that's. the
Oh,
thing, is the
yeah.
drop.
We were just, same thing.
I mean, we would have to, if it's an early voting location, we would have to.
Yeah, it has to.
Well, we would have to have a Dropbox in the early voting site.
Well, the site's open, but it doesn't, people, it's too confusing for people to be like, no, but you can't use that one.
All right, then,
Once again, we'll take that.
shall I amend my motion to limit Walter Reed to the 2 Saturdays and, if it would be easier, we could do Friday.
Just because we
So,
can leave the. room
Saturday,
up,
Friday,
Taking
Saturday,
it up and said,
At Walter Reed.
it's an hour of every day. So
with the hours on Friday being 2 to 7, as we usually do,
That's,
to provide an evening.
yeah. So we'll reach out to the facility. It is a heavily used
Yeah.
facility. So my concern is
Hopefully they
which
will.
rooms will be available. This pace.
The feel is that maybe we don't need the usual amount.
Well, we don't need the gym, that's for
Yeah.
sure.
That we can make do with a smaller space.
The problem is the one room that we started out during the last election, the lighting is fully inadequate.
can we leave it open-ended and say we authorize one of those weekdays from 2 to 7, preferably Friday, but leave it at the discretion of the office?
No,
Depending if we can, okay.
we set ours.
Yeah.
I know,
No,
And I didn't-
so
I should
it's-
be-
it's-
I know, but I'm
no, it is
asking
the
for-
Electoral board or general registrar, that's the way the
Except,
code
yeah.
is written.
Yeah.
It does give the authority to
So
either.
we will leave, I think Thursday or Friday. I mean, we can decide which days to leave your discretion.
I'm saying Friday is preferable,
Yeah,
but in the case where a suitable room is not available at Walter Reed,
Thursday.
maybe we move it to
I
Thursday.
worry that I worry more about Saturday.
It's okay, we'll see what we can get.
So that the final motion, and you're the seconder, so you can. The office will be open both Saturdays. Walter Reed will be open both Saturdays. The office will be open 8 to 5 during the week. Except for whichever day Walter Reed is open. Preference is for Friday. But Thursday would be acceptable if Friday is not possible. The Walter Reed hours to be 2 to 7 as the are, and the office to stay open until 7 on whichever weekday that happens to be.
Just historically speaking, that Friday afternoon, people have it off and that's when people are coming out to vote.
That makes perfect sense.
Yeah.
Okay, that sounded right.
Yes,
So I'll second.
Dave is the
Yes.
original second, so since I'm amending, he can accept. Any other discussion?
That is it. And then the Dropbox for
We'll
Walter Reed
get
will
back
of
to
course
that.
open.
That's not part of this motion. All in favor of the hours as proposed? Aye.
I,
Any opposed? All right. Motion passes. We have no ultimate say in.
No, it makes sense for the Dropbox to be open.
I agree.
Because I think it's too confusing for people to be like, no, why? is
It
the-
could potentially be confusing as it is, if people wind up going to Dropboxes that don't know.
Figure it out.
If you get a lot of angry calls, you.
Well, and Walter Reed is on the way to the office from. So it's not-
Keep track.
Yeah, I mean, you're gonna basically have to pass by there to get to the Aurora Hills.
Depending on which route you take.
Yeah, I don't know that materially increases the.
Okay.
load.
That is that.
So we have a special election. So then the last item on the agenda is announcement. would you like to update on the? Yes, I suspect. Yes.
So you haven't signed the contract. One
Yeah.
point you thought you might review equipment by June.
Yeah, that's still the target that we're working for, is to have new scanners by June. There's nothing wrong with the contract. It's just, it got caught up in the holidays. So with people not checking.
And the
email.
usual,
Yeah,
the county attorney people have to
yeah,
do their jobs in total.
yeah. So it's just a matter, like, so it's not like.
We have no indication that there's any problem.
Yeah.
It will receive its approval, and
Yeah.
I think both Gretchen and Unison are progressing.
But we
on the
will not
assumption.
be using the new equipment in the special election that much. And we will very much be using.
There's also, I have heard that there's the possibility that we won't even have the primary in June. It'll be moved to August. So by then we might have.
Yeah,
we
Yeah,
might
we don't know. We'll
solve
find
our-
out.
solve our-
Which this year seems to be.
Any of the specials, we probably won't. It's not
Definitely.
ready for that. June is probably the earliest we expect to be ready to go with that.
but things are moving. I don't have any concerns at this point in time.
We don't have any significant update about Madison other than
Oh,
the
yeah,
timeframe.
Madison, yeah, so we are working at moving the early voting location at Madison because it is being renovated. I met with county staff before the holidays, and I will be meeting with more county staff next week, actually, to discuss options. Once we identify options, once again, it'll go in front of the county board twice. I think there are some good options. We appreciate the feedback that we've received from the community at this point in time. What I have understood from the feedback we've received is that our voters really want a polling location that's probably within 15 minutes of Madison and that has a nice big surface parking lot that is free. And so we will do our best to find that the unicorn of a facility for those voters.
To note for anybody who wasn't privy to these things, the moving of Madison as an early voting site and Madison as an election day site are kind of two
Two
separate
different
questions.
things, yeah.
We have a lot more leeway with them. Like Madison can move a lot further away as an early voting site than it can as an election day site.
For an election day site, it'll be.
About the Dropbox.
Yep.
Does it stay, does it move?
We'll see. We'll make that decision when we can.
Yeah, we'd have to, that depends on what the construction footprint's gonna look like. I mean, does it become inaccessible, like that? kind of-
Yeah, we had a lot of issues with construction blocking off the Dropbox in Charlotte.
If they don't block it off, I don't see any reason why it can't stay open. I mean,
Yeah.
It would be
It is one of our.
an incredible nuisance to try to move it,
According to our use,
so it's not,
according to our usage, it is
It's a
one of
low
the,
usage.
it is a not frequently used.
which is odd
It's
to.
not the lowest, but it is one of the lower used. Yeah,
Yeah, I mean,
I mean, is it odd?
I don't know. It strikes me that having that being the early voting site, like that's clearly like a point of where
but
people
it's
might
out
be
of the
going.
way. No, it's out of the
Yeah.
way. Anyway, that is the only, and so more to come in the next, in the February meeting, I should know more information. We're still assessing different locations throughout the county.
So our next meeting is
February 3rd.
3rd, that's by code, so
Has to be
Well, the
first
third,
weekend,
if you like.
right?
the first week.
The first week in February is required by code. We will be doing our reappointments of election officers. That's also required by code.
We also reconsider.
Yeah, and we will have our,
And the
old-
gift policy.
we will have old
Double
business, I think, for the first time since I've been on the board. It'll be old business.
Sorry.
Really,
That's
no, it's fine.
Yeah.
There's
Feel
been
like
a lot
feel
of.
like
You did send the gift policy.
There's
I
a
looked.
lot of emails to get through, your first, few weeks as an electoral board member.
It's true.
So,
Yeah.
Not fitting of me.
Yes, I will entertain a motion.
To adjourn.
To adjourn.
I will second that.
Yes.
Alrighty then, without objection, the meeting is adjourned, 6:55. Adam, second.
Noted.